Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first policy meeting of the fiscal year? Academic year. Currently, we do not have a chairperson for policy, but I would like to know if anyone wants to make a motion to nominate someone for chairperson.
I nominate Sean Eversley Bradwell as chairperson for the policy committee.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do you plan on being chair of HR, or would you accept the nomination to be chair of HR?
Yeah, I think I would.
Okay.
If you don't want to be, I can do it.
I want to divide our labor up as much as possible. That's all.
Yeah.
So how do you want to
I
proceed?
think I'd rather do HR.
Okay. I will accept the nomination.
You also are board president though, so I'm happy to do both of them if you prefer.
I think what we'll probably do is work really closely this year on all the policies.
Great.
So we'll do it as a committee more than as a chairperson, if that makes sense.
Great.
Does that work?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, all in favor?
I'll abstain.
Okay, Sean, it's all yours.
Fantastic. All right. Looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the work that we have ahead. It's going to be a busy year, we know, with a number of major policies. So we'll be in as much contact as possible and set up some documents and or some systems to make sure that we're all informed about agenda setting, reading policies, giving suggestions ahead of time, those sorts of things. And this year it may even mean having some additional policy meetings, given the things that I'm anticipating coming up, especially both at the Fed level and at the state level. Just, I'm sure we're all aware. So fantastic. Then the first thing that brings us to public comment. We have 3 people signed up to speak. The first person is Jennifer Goodmark. Okay. It's been postponed. All right, fantastic. Does the same thing hold true for Molly and Jake? Okay, we'll make sure that those are both on for HR for next time.
Sorry.
Fantastic. We'll do it all. We'll do it all. And that brings us to well, 2 things. I want to add an agenda item, if folks will agree, but I'll wait until we get to additional discussion items. But we'll go to discussion item 4.2, which is policy 5695, student personnel devices. And this one I will hand over to Emily, who's been extremely involved over the summer, working with Mary Grover and Carrie Burke and other folks. And so I don't know if there's anything you want to say, Emily, if you want to lead us through. I'm familiar, but I haven't been at the past 2 meetings that were held.
Sure. Wait, so as you all know, Mary and Carrie spent the last year doing extensive research and engagement, both with various stakeholder groups within ICSD, with educators and school leaders and families and students. Throughout the year, we also invited folks repeatedly to submit thoughts and feedback on Let's Talk, and we have dozens and dozens of contributions that way. And so have been able to, certainly have not heard from everyone, but I think that Carrie and Mary did a lot to try to reach as many people as possible. And we were grateful to have the additional feedback through Let's Talk. I can say that all of the board members certainly who were with us last year, have read all of those Let's Talk submissions, and we had a number of presentations from Carrie and Mary throughout the year, and so really appreciated all of their engagement and work to make sure that this was a policy that was being very much informed by the community and the concerns that they had and the needs that they had. We did spend the better part of this summer doing additional research. I would say all of us did quite a bit of research on other policies, both within kind of a close area around here, and then also kind of further afield, especially for policies that have been in place for a while, to get ideas on the things that are most critical to include in a policy versus what needs to be more in kind of regulation and implementation, some of the kind of lessons learned in all of those pieces. So we have a policy now that has been drafted based on those. It's very similar in nature to Groton School District that recently published their policy. And at this point, I think that Mary and Carrie have done a really great job of kind of moving a little bit beyond the policy while still thinking about what's going into it, because they are very, very aware that it's all going to come down to effective implementation and effective supports, both for students and educators and school leaders and everyone else in the community. I don't think that any of us are under any illusion that this isn't going to be a rough start to the year in many ways, that it's going to be a kind of the center of attention more so than we would certainly hope for it to be long term. But I think that they have already been meeting with school leaders and groups of teachers and so on across each individual school to really make sure that everybody is on the same page and is going to be implementing it in the same way, while also meeting the needs of their unique communities and schools. So that's kind of where we're at right now. The draft policy that we have written up, how much do you want me to like go through kind of what we were thinking about each one, or is it?
Whatever you want to do. I mean, I have a number of questions as well. But it's a much more a matter of what we think is the most effective.
Yeah.
This is the only agenda item we have, so we
yeah.
have time to.
Well, I mean, I think that we'll get into a lot of these through the discussion. For clarity, I think we intentionally, the purpose of the policy and the way that it kicks off is a recognition that this is in keeping with a New York State ed law that has been updated. This is coming down from the state and the governor. It is not a question at this point of whether we should or should not have a policy. We are now required to have a policy. So it's more about thinking about how to best put that policy into place. And so we state that up front in the policy so that we're recognizing that, and the community also recognizes that. And then we thought there's continued processing and thinking about the different ways in which we will be storing phones, when students will have access to them, when they won't, what the alternative methods of accessing them, because of course, one of the things that's very important is we never want caregivers and students to feel like they are cut off from one another and not able to be in touch if and when they need to be. So thinking a lot about those pieces, which we'll talk about. There are a number of exemptions for students who will have various needs for having the phones or some sort of device on their person. So wanting to be really thoughtful of that, make sure that we are considering all of the exemptions that are both required by law, and also that we recognize as a need here in ICSD, while also having to be really cognizant of making sure that even for those students that the devices are used for the purposes that are indicated, and do not become a widely used and perhaps shared device to be used amongst friends as well. And then I think that the part that's both meatiest and perhaps most challenging is really thinking about what the interventions are to help students try to kind of limit their own use, to help support teachers in being able to provide really engaging instruction that will kind of encourage a reduction in the use of phones and other devices anyway, and then also the responses of what they will be. We certainly will have, just like we would with adults, lots of students who are going to struggle with this and will need reminders and sometimes have alternative or additional supports. And so really thinking about how we can make them systematic across all of the schools, and also to be very much student focused, and making sure that we're recognizing that the responses are to help them strengthen their engagement in school and perhaps relieve themselves of being so attached to their phones or other devices, while also continuing in the best interest of everyone. So I'm probably blabbering way more than I should. Those are the things that we're going to be talking about. And then finally, reporting requirements. There are a couple of reporting requirements that are required by the state. And I'm looking forward to having a discussion today about what, if any, additional data collection and reporting requirements we are interested in to be able to kind of look back and assess how the policy has both been implemented and affected students. So now I will turn it away to the two of you if you have questions or where we might want to kick off in the conversation.
Well, I think I want to invite Mary and is it Dan's going to be doing some work as well down here just to engage us in the conversation as well. Thank you for that, Emily. And I know, and thank you for the work this summer of meeting with various folks and having some of these conversations. I think the one thing that would be important for the community to know is that this is not just a statewide requirement. It also comes with fiscal attachments, if I'm correct about that, that the policy is attached to release of statewide funds. And it was in the governor's budget that this policy comes through. And so your point about it's not a matter of whether we will or we won't, it's now the law and it has fiscal responsibilities that come along with it as well. So Mary and or Dan, anything that you'd like to say to start before we jump into some of the more specifics?
No, let's jump in. I appreciate everything, Emily. The overview you gave was really comprehensive. So thank you.
Ready to jump in? Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
As we know, we struggle pretty frequently with policy in terms of level of specificity and having a policy that meets either a statewide mandate or a federal mandate, but also provides flexibility in terms of implementation and what does that look like. And the policy as currently written, again, is based off of some other policies of local school districts, things that I've been seeing, that we all been seeing around the state. We're not the only ones that are involved in this process. And so some of the questions that folks may have will be forthcoming, for lack of a better word. We may have some ideas, some thoughts here as well, but I just want to make sure that people are looking for the policy to spell out everything specifically. We tend to not write policies in that way, but rather to give guidance about what those things should be. And so that's what I see here as well, right?
And if I could just jump in for
Please.
1 second, partially just to Dan's involvement, who I didn't mention yet. I think is really important because a lot of the policies that we saw from other districts, a lot of the kind of implementation pieces are in the code of conduct.
Okay.
And that's where a lot of those other pieces are laid out. I haven't seen, it's been very, very few, if any, policies that have like laid out the details that I think some people are hoping or expecting to see in the policy. Almost no district has done that. Most of them have them in the code of conduct or just on their website or in other places.
Yep. And I've been very appreciative, at least of the school community that I'm involved in, the communication from that school community, that a reminder like, hey, this is coming. I think we received 2 messages so far this summer, but all of which have been helpful. Like a reminder, this is coming. Here are some suggestions, some discussion points to have with your young person. And I think the more, we know that communication is going to, increase as we get closer to the school year. So I found that to be very helpful. So thank you to our administrators for reaching out to caregivers around that as well. All right. Should we just jump in with questions? I think you identified a couple of key points. As I read the policy, and at any point in time, folks jump in with additional questions. In the section of purpose, section 1, there's a sentence that says administrators and staff may also restrict use of electronic devices during school events and activities held outside of the school day and or off school grounds. I was just curious about that statement and possible examples of what that would look like or could look like. Or we're just putting it in to make sure that we have the opportunity to do so. It's the second paragraph.
Yeah. So this is again, some of our after school activities are school sponsored and educational events. So the legislation applies to that. Some are not. So if I think through the implementation of this, and I appreciate the framing on the policy versus the implementation. If I think through the implementation, PTA might be hosting an event and using a school facility and have the autonomy to make decisions about the use of phones versus an athletic event
Mm. Yeah.
or a choir concert.
So this provides a little bit scale of scope for the community about what this will look like and the implementation part. It may go beyond the bell to bell, as the saying has been used.
And I think that it's about school grounds as well, right? So if we
Yeah.
have students that are going on a field trip somewhere,
Mm.
that teachers can still expect that phones may travel with them, but can still not be used, right?
So to give some more context, there is an internal document among administrators. So every building is having paid committee meetings for staff members can volunteer or opt in. Not volunteer, they'll be paid, but it's optional summer planning to work through some of the details of implementation. I want to reiterate too, I don't want people to feel betrayed when this becomes challenging or something rises that we didn't expect.
Sure.
Right. Last night I was at GIAC watching basketball. I used one of the prompts from the communication team has put out on how to talk to kids about technology that I've used with my own children. Like how do you see technology changing? And a child mentioned, well, what about glasses?
Hmm.
And I thought about Google Glasses and how those are evolving, and they're thinking ahead of that already. So these conversations we're having are going to be really important. And, this part of the policy, we might want to revisit it and amend it. I want to make that really clear as these building teams are gathering and asking learning questions and pointing out things, given their intimacy in the classroom with students and what they're navigating. I think it's going to be a feedback loop that we want to consider having this on the policy agenda monthly for a check-in, or every other month you may consider.
I think that's very helpful, right? That this is unlike some other policies where sort of, we sort of set it and forget it. This is one that's going to continue to evolve, one, because of the newness and probably best practices learned across the state as well, learning what some other districts are doing, what's working in our buildings, some things we may want to consider. So I can see that as well. I know, so this has been part of the conversation, and I see part of it here as well, though it's not spelled out. But one of the things that I continually hear is a concern for parents and caregivers to be able to contact their children, and just during the school day in general, given it's become much more common practice. And then obviously, of course, in the case of an emergency. And so some of the early thinking about what that may look like, or some of what our administrators are thinking about.
Yeah, so a couple of things that are coming up is, one, really highlighting what we have that's already exists. So Stop Finder, the transportation app, so you know where your child's bus is really important. Another piece that has surfaced is main offices and how they're covered. For students to be able to access the phone. That is part of the policy, providing a number for the main office. And it's going to be important that parents call and that's staffed.
Mm.
Right. So thinking about that implication is one thing that has surfaced. And then just using, we have so many communication. Katie, what is and I'm looking up to Katie Hart for those who are joining us online, our communication expert on how we're using school. See, I don't even want to say the old term.
In the last email we sent about telephones to remind everyone to update their contact information there. So that'll ensure they're getting the information. We also do have the ICSD mobile app now. And we can send quick notifications directly with that as well.
So Katie did a great presentation today for administrators at our retreat on how to use that communication through school tool. So for example, PDFs you can't translate those easily. So there's a way in which we're going to have to upload that communication so that it's phone friendly when caregivers get it.
Mhm.
And just the nuances of that tool that we're learning and that she's leading us through. Thank you.
And I know we're going to begin, you know, I know it's early August. Is it early August, mid-August? I don't know what to call it right now. I got a week left, so here we go. Caregivers are going to start asking, you know, about what that communication protocol looks like. Is there a rollout schedule time for letting parents know all this communication information, main office phone numbers, school tool push out options? And I know some of this has already been discussed, but that's also why we're putting it on.
Down, I mean, I'm like, we're looking up at her.
I know, right?
And I'm like, Katie, come on down.
Yeah, so we've built out, and I'm happy to share the spreadsheet that we built out. But so we've started the weekly communication through Thrillshare, so that's going out through our
That's the word
platform.
I was looking for.
Oh, yeah, Thrillshare.
What's it called?
Thrillshare, it's the platform that that we're sending these messages through, and so we've built out a new email series for that, and that launched last week. And then we'll be working on a social media campaign that will start in the next couple of weeks as well. And then we'll have, oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
But so we'll also be including it with our annual notices. And so those they're being reviewed this week. They should be done. And then buildings will be sending that out the second week of August.
So are the communications, it sounds like most of the communications are district-wide. Does that mean that regardless of what school, there will be the same phone availability in the front office, or that, like, how much is going to be kind of unique even because of the setup of the school building versus, like, will some be like, there'll be a telephone in a different room? Like, how, I guess I'm just asking how specifically
Yeah.
it'd be and how varied across schools.
I don't foresee a variance as far as where to access the landline phones that
Okay.
students will have access to. Those will be in the main office or student welcome centers. On one draft graphic we have that we can share in draft form, we have outlined the communication resources. And so Thrillshare is what I was looking for, and reminding folks to download the ICSD app to their phones, because the irony, actually, as I say that out loud, that parents will be downloading these resources on their phones. Just have to note that out loud. Right. So as far as, you know, to get be able to get notifications from the schools and whatnot. But I do want to just comment on the communication plan campaign that you've put out, that you'll see after the policy, if adopted on August 12th, a robust communication campaign after that, August 13th.
So then part of it would be sort of a review, asking some questions today in hopes that it'd be on the August 12th agenda for a first read and adoption.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the idea as well? Just trying to get my timeline straight. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think there's two other things, both that Emily has highlighted that people keep asking about across the state.
Sean, can I interrupt you just for one sec?
Absolutely.
Sorry.
No.
In board docs, am I seeing correctly that what's in there is like the old, I think this is like the state. Yeah, this is like the state guidance on how to create a policy.
Oh, right. So this is the NISBA sample
Yeah.
that came.
Just so that people know what we're looking at.
Understood. That's not the one that should be linked. The one that should be linked is the one that Carrie sent out today, it looks like. Or was it yesterday? It looks like this. It's in the policy template.
Okay.
And I can thank you for that, Emily. And Madeline, I added you to that document as well. Do you have it, Tricia? Or need me to send it?
I have it open right now. If you like the email, if you want me to forward it.
We've been trying to put all of our policies into a similar template. That's part of the ongoing policy revisions. And so we've taken, Emily, Carrie, and Mary have taken the various policies, best practices, and put it into the new template. And that's what we're referring to, even though it's not currently linked to board docs, but we'll have that done in a second.
I cut you off though. That was-
No, and in this conversation, please, continue to, because we have to do it. So there are 3 or 4 different things that people keep asking about, and one is device storage. And what does it look like? And if I'm not mistaken, at the elementary school level, at the K-5 level, students can be told to keep their phones silent and in their backpacks for the day, but that may not be appropriate at the secondary level as I read the regulation. I could be wrong about that.
Mhm.
And so there's different options at the secondary level.
So right now, right now, as we norm with building leaders and their teams, at the elementary level, a communication went out, not requesting, in alignment with the policy that students do not bring their devices to school.
Yep.
If they do, they will be asked to keep them in their bag. So that's the nuance. At the secondary level, along with Chromebook, students will be issued this cyber pouch. It has audible Velcro, and they will be responsible for their devices. Putting it in here, it kills the signal. So if you were to call me right now, I mean, I could just, it won't go through. I know it works. We've been testing this.
And what has been the reception from folks so far about the use of pouches? I know there's like 4 or 5 different pouch options that are out there.
Yeah, this is an affordable option. I don't want to be a sponsor for any of these
Understood,
pouches,
understood.
so I'm actually thinking about not naming them
Yeah.
right now. Some pouches require installation of magnetic buttons. The genius of children exists. They have figured out the workaround
Yeah.
for those. And our secondary, while this is a new legislation, the conversation is not new.
Mhm.
So Ithaca High School, for example, researched a number of possibilities and have been talking about it all year long.
Mm.
So I would say the response is the response is always going to be diverse in this case.
Mhm.
Like, okay, okay, with this, if there is an emergency, students still have access to it. It kills the signal, so there's not going to be that distraction of buzzing. It's on their person. We don't want to be in the business of managing phones that we don't pay for. So students will still keep that. There are a variety of, I'm sure we will hear as we work through this implementation in September, concerns about the pouch. And what would an installation of a separate set of lockers look like, for example? And,
Sure.
I'm hesitant for anything that would further segregate students or consolidate students in one spot. Just thinking of flow
Mhm.
and access for students, given we do have a number of exceptions
Mhm.
that we want to be thinking about, and what would that look like for students that wouldn't be an exemption that further marginalizes them.
There's no perfect solution. Like I could complain about that and I would complain about all the, like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
And I mean, the point is, I think that we know that students can basically open anything that's on the market right now.
Right.
And so, which is why making sure that the response is consistent across the board, which means that no matter if they're getting it out of there more frequently than they should, or breaking a much more expensive Yonder pouch, like you all also are going to have responses in place where they won't have their phone on their person anymore if it's if they repeatedly struggle to
Mhm.
keep it put away. So.
Madeline, any thoughts, questions? Yeah, I think that was my response, Emily, as well. Like, I'm looking at it and I was like, right, but what about this and what about that? And at the same point in time, it doesn't matter what it is. And already hearing from young people in my life who are in high school about how easy it is to get into any other pouch on the market, and oftentimes for a $30 device that they could buy and share. So, I think this is probably more for the community, that we understand there is no perfect solution. It's more of a culture shift that we're going to be looking for, and trying to support that culture shift as much as possible, and understanding that it will be difficult, especially for a generation that's been pushed onto devices, and now we're taking them away during the school hours. And so it will be a struggle. There's no doubt about it. So that's helpful. So the expectation then for secondary students will all receive a pouch, and the expectation is they can keep it on their person. The district is not responsible.
ID tag.
Gotcha.
Label on the
Yep.
back.
That's a key piece for me, that we're not financially responsible. That's the other part that I like about this, that we're not taking someone's phone and then being liable for the financial cost of it. It maintains with the student. I think that's the best option for everybody that's around.
Can you speak to the cost associated with it, so that if this year you found that that was a very ineffective way to try to mitigate this, can anyone speak to, like, was it such an enormous investment that if next year the district felt like it needed to look to something else, that that's still a possibility? Or are we prepared that that might happen?
Yeah, I think the ongoing costs with any legislation, that's where we get to be the problem solvers.
Yeah.
Right, because the funds that are allocated right now have been released for the upcoming school year. So Dom submitted our grant. There is a cost per pouch, but we can also allocate funds for professional development and paid time. So that's one of the ways we're leveraging those monies for paid time for staff to give input now this summer.
That's great.
Have we received the amount I know it's the state has allocated, what was it, 12.5 million? But let me be clear, 12.5 million for 770 school districts. So not 12.5 million for the Ithaca City School District, for the entire state.
Yes.
The state has allocated that amount of funds. And so we're thinking, what, Dom, possibly? Gotcha. Okay. I wanted to clarify that as well. I didn't want to be,
Yeah, I was like, what?
right.
Yeah, you see that number. Yeah, it's in all the
Okay.
articles.
This is another example that we have said over the years of an unfunded mandate. You know, even though there's been a very small amount allocated, the reality is it won't be nearly enough for any school district to implement this policy. Okay. I think that the storage one helps me a lot. I know there's a lot of things that still need to be worked through, a lot of conversations. The exemptions all made sense to me as I read them. Some of them, I'm sure, were in consultation with our medical professionals and special education department and other folks as well. So I assume it just all made sense. Mira, I can hear you getting your phone. And I think then the biggest part of the implementation will be the interventions, right? And how we are thinking about what do those look like and how, the implementation is one thing, asking folks to do it and then trying to get some folks to actually adhere to the policy is going to be probably where the biggest struggle comes from without burdening teachers and overloading teachers already and administrators and professional staff, right? And so
It's fun.
care to speak anything about just how we're thinking about it, what approaches we're trying to take? I know, again, it's still a conversation. We're going to keep learning.
Well, I want to add, I want to thank union leadership. We had 2 meetings in July with union representation from each one of our unions. And the learning questions they asked about this and what it looked like resulted in significant edits to a number of our documents that building leaders are using as they're starting this conversation. And my biggest takeaway from it was the need for a collective approach on it, because as you said earlier, how do we implement this in a way that centers teaching and learning, and what our goal, our hope when we started this conversation over a year ago, our hope was to grow greater connections with one another as a community.
Hmm.
And now when we're looking at the imminent implementation of this, how do our interventions reflect that hope?
Mhm. Questions, additions, thoughts?
I've had significant concerns about the impact that this is going to have. This has the potential to have on educators and the classroom environment and interruptions in instruction. From everything that I have read and seen, there is a big emphasis on the need for school leaders to really take the lead on any kind of like more significant interventions aside from just a warning or a reminder in the classroom. And I think that's, I don't know if Mary and Carrie have created a kind of responses check. I don't know, what is it when it like it's more
Flow
chart,
chart, progressive
yeah.
flow chart.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be really important for clarity purposes and for a teacher in a classroom to know, that the expectations of them fit into this little box, and anything beyond that is no longer theirs. And that sometimes that's going to mean them just needing to allow somebody to continue using their phone if they refuse to listen or follow direction until an administrator is able to come and help them in a more significant way. And so both communicating that to educators so that they know they kind of have that permission to almost like let go at some point, I think is really critical, and will I'm excited to see the next iteration of that, to just make sure that that's so clear. And Carrie, what does Carrie always say? They'll have a limited but important role, and making sure that school leaders are holding true to that, and allowing space for that, and recognizing the kind of balance between too much disruption in instruction and trying to hold students accountable to this one piece. So I think that that'll be really important to be able to see that in the flow chart. When we think about the kind of data that I hope that we'll be collecting, one of the things is that I very much want to hear from educators as the year goes on about the you know, the burden that is felt in the classroom and the support that they feel like they're getting from their administration, and if and when stronger connections or opportunities to support them more are seen, that those happen very quickly. I personally also was thinking that I've talked to Carrie and Mary a little bit about, like, it would be really nice if I know that some teachers already have those kind of like shoe rack, like something, so that if a teacher could say, like, why don't you have leave your phone and let it sit up here if you can't, like something so that they feel like they can kind of encourage someone from like letting go of their phone without having a pile of phones sitting on their desk or something like that. So just thinking about, like, if there's ever an interim solution within the classroom to help. I read a few things about, like, if we have, I'm thinking about things that like PTAs could like almost donate of like plugs so that like you can charge your phone up here and just leave it up here if you're really having a hard time with whatever, just to make sure that they have as many like resources and supports in the classroom. When will that be shared? How is that going?
Well, we have version 8 right now. So we can definitely share it. Just know it's an ongoing
Absolutely.
draft as built, you know, as every and I'm really grateful to the educators and the leaders spending time reviewing things and thinking, you know, following and then, given both our hopes and our concerns is really important. So we can upload this, we should just put a draft watermark on it so folks know.
I think that would be helpful for the meeting on the 12th, just so board members have an idea of what it looks like. I feel compelled to say one thing and then add a personal anecdote. And the thing that I'm compelled to say is that the statute is very clear that no student can be suspended for the mere fact of not complying with the cell phone ban. I think that's a significant piece of information. And so that gets to Emily's point about having a variety of tools and a tool belt for teachers will be very helpful. And I know a number of our teachers have already done this. I think I said it before, last semester was the first semester I had a cell phone or device ban in my classroom. And there were times where students just did it anyway. And that required additional relationship building and having some conversations after class, right? So I didn't disrupt the lesson, right? Or I may have made a joke about it, like, hey, how about you put that away? And then kept it moving. And I know it's different when you have, well, I have 75 students as opposed to whatever it may be, 100. But I think that's also going to be part of it as well, is, you know, what happens after a class or conversations with caregivers about supporting this work as well. And so, yeah, this is a sizable, I mean, we're recognizing this is a sizable culture shift, right? It's a sizable culture shift. So I appreciate that. And including in full recognition that it's draft form without question, that, you know, it's going to grow and change and move, I think, again, but just would be helpful to start the conversation with board members.
Great.
Give some idea of what's out there. And then data, right? Do you have some ideas or some thoughts? Well, one, how about we begin with what data is required? Can we start there and then?
Yeah, my understanding is the data that's required is the number almost of, I use the term referral, but when I hear that word, I think of discipline. And given our approach is not per the legislation to, and we're not allowed to suspend, I can't find the right word now that I'm looking for, but School Tool allows us to track when a student is referred to an administrative team that might be facilitating a restorative justice circle or some intervention in support of the student in collaboration with the caregiver. So Lynn Klankowski shared with me last week, here's what it would look like on School Tool for staff to click. In certain instances, they might call the main office directly and request administrative support, or depending on that school culture, a walkie or whatever different means of communication staff are using among each other. But that is as far as data, the one referral or the one data piece that sticks out to
Yep.
me. As far as reporting. Now, as far as understanding the impact and how this is working and what we need to do, we have some surveys already in place. The Clyde survey, our school culture and climate survey, that we can put different questions in to get at, depending on the data we want to collect
Mhm,
through its impact on students.
mhm. And I know a key thing for the state is trying to ensure that there is not a significant disparate enforcement of this policy as well. So part of collecting the data or the data is to make sure that we're looking that way. I'm going to keep saying data, don't worry about it. Go that route. And Emily, I know you were thinking about this in some other ways as well, right? So like when Karen Yearwood went to a conference, they were talking about seeing a decrease in behavioral issues or possible decrease in bullying. Were those some of the other things that you were thinking about in that regard?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was, in general, I think that I always thinking about the response from the community. I want to think about the kind of information I would love to have when someone comes to me 6 or 9 months from now saying this has been whatever,
Yeah.
positive or negative. And while obviously we can't draw causal connections, I have seen enough data from other districts and other research that I think that it would be really interesting and helpful, if nothing else, especially if we do identify even some trends. So yes, things like student mental health, like classroom and school climate, both from a student's perspective and an educator's perspective. Even just hearing that, instruction has been transformed or has been more engaging, or relationships with students, all of those things. Student learning, I think, it still would be very helpful to see in case we see any adjustments in any kind of administered assessments. Student discipline as it relates to this. I know discipline is not the right word, interventions. So yes, but I've been comforted by Carrie hearing that a lot of the, and probably, I don't know the acronyms as well, but probably what you just mentioned, Mary, too, of that we have a lot of these things that we have been assessing anyway. So really just thinking about how and when to use that data and to be able to look at it in different ways versus having to come up with completely new assessments for that. So I think just in partnership more about like, what are we already collecting and how can we look at that as a board in the school district and connect it with this. I am excited to see what changes are going into school tool and hope that, I think that some draft of Lynn's was shared with me
Yeah.
at some point, but I think that would be helpful
I'll add
for
that
us
to the list.
all to know. Yeah, I think, yeah, just making sure that we can point at the end to, there really were some positive things that came out of this, or, yeah, it doesn't look like anything's changed.
Right, right.
Yeah. And I guess I would just add, like, I would love personally, for this year to be able to look at some of that data sooner rather than later, maybe not like, measures of mental health or things that may take longer to show impact, but certainly the data on any kind of interventions and the types of students who are experiencing that most frequently, and teacher and student kind of experience in the implementation of this and how it's in fact affecting instruction, I think would be great to, even if it's anecdotal, a couple of times this year as we're implementing it for the first time.
Okay. That is hopeful. Any additional thoughts?
Yes. Only that I think that many times even just today, we've said like, this is a work in progress, we're still working, but just to, as we send a message to the community, like these things are a work in progress, but also we start school on September 5th, and that folks know that, yes, we recognize that we'll be returning back to this policy, that I'm sure, Mary, you will be working with school leaders and educators throughout the year to get feedback and be maybe making some slight adjustments. But I guess I'm asking for confirmation that we are saying to the community that like this is being implemented on day one, that there will be that these, the intervention protocol will be in place, and that there is going to be kind of like a standard policy, just to say out loud, since we've said a lot of
Yeah,
like. We're still working
absolutely. And
on
in
it.
fact, tonight, there are some IHS administrators in the community, and they have an outreach plan, which includes attending community events like GIAC basketball, different community celebrations to field questions.
Mhm.
So I do, in addition to sending out emails through ThrillShare, the communication campaign includes community events.
Mhm.
And these prompts that are going out weekly for caregivers to talk to their child about technology and its impact is, we also invite them to submit parts of their conversation to Let's Talk, so we can feature them in future communications, because we don't want to miss the opportunity to center the genius of kids, the things that I've been hearing in response to this from students. It's been helpful.
I just want to comment that I've been appreciative of the approach. I know for some families, they may want much more definitive answers at this moment. But I like the flexibility and the thoughtfulness going into and not rushing in with a very strict and or inflexible approach, but recognizing where we find ourselves. And, partly when I was looking at some other folks, how they were setting up or doing facilities projects to construct whole sets of new lockers. Like that doesn't seem, to your point, Emily, like if that may not be the move, but then you're already locked in with a facilities project. So let's not go that route at this point in time. And so I understand where we find ourselves, and looking forward to what's ahead. And so whatever information we can have, and I'll try to create a list, or we can work on it together for the full board for next week, right? Like an idea of the communication timeline, an idea of what the intervention flow chart could possibly look like, and then letting the board know that this is an ongoing conversation. I'll commit to, as a board officer, putting it on an agenda for maybe early October, just to get some feedback for a conversation. We should have some idea by then. After 3 or 4 weeks, I'm quite sure there'll be a lot of feedback by then. So maybe that makes sense. If that works for folks, we can get that set onto an agenda now, and just know that that's going to be coming up as part of our conversation.
Yep, that sounds great.
And I'll just add, we do have a frequently asked questions section on our website that will continue to update
Fantastic.
with this information.
And my hope would be that as principals are contacting each of their communities, they're also including a line that links to that FAQ page as well, if we can make sure that happens.
That was in our last one.
Yep, great, great.
Great.
I have more questions, but they're not going to get answered tonight. So that's it for me. Madeline, you're good. Emily, you're good.
Good.
Fantastic. With the 6 minutes we have left, I want to thank you. Thank you. You don't have to go anywhere, because we're going to be done in 3 minutes. Excuse me. On the tail end of a walking pneumonia, but here we go. I wasn't expecting that response. That's a lot of sympathy. That was great empathy. I need that more in my life. That was fantastic. There is a policy that I think the policy committee has to consider. It will probably take more of our time than it needs to. But I think in justice and fairness to our community, it's one that we have not engaged in. And that is the desire for various school communities to name spaces after individuals. We got a couple requests last year from some elementary schools. We got a couple requests already this year from some middle schools. We have long thought that we probably should put a policy in place. And so maybe the idea would be to start researching before we make any decisions to make sure that the process is for lack of a better word, a fair process with significant community input. And so it's not to delay any recommendation or ask that's come our way, but much more so we have not addressed, I'd say probably in the past 3 years, we probably got 7 or 8 requests to name library spaces or gyms or playgrounds. And I think we need to think a little bit more deeply as a district about what does that look like and under what circumstances. And it may just be a simple policy. Maybe it's very easy to do, but that's one that I'd like to recommend that we take a look at if that's okay by committee members.
That's great.
And I'll ask Tricia, and I'll add more to her plate to start reaching out to other clerks across the state to see if any other districts already have a policy about naming spaces. And we may just be able to borrow somebody's policy. They've already done the work, if that works. Any other agenda items? We would have already passed this. In theory, we will already have passed this policy. So we may not need to discuss it come the September meeting. We should continue on with the deletion of some policies, and I'll get that information to Madeline, what we've started. I still think there are 15 or there's probably 12 left that we have not deleted. And then maybe we put on the September agenda just a conversation about additional policies we see coming down the road. Oh, we also need to pass a student ex officio member of the board policy as well. And so that should be on the agenda. We are not worried about passing that policy because we already have a practice in place. So the practice will maintain itself with our student reps, but we should put a policy. I mean, we're required to put a policy on the books. And so that is one that I would recommend that we take a look at. And I'll send the NISBA version to everybody as well. Any other policies we should be thinking about?
I'm just curious, the student voter registration, it looks like on the last minutes, we said that we're going to coordinate with IHS and LACS. Are we-
Yep. Let's put that on the agenda as well. I forgot about that.
Okay.
Right, there's a plan for that. And didn't some state or country just lower their voting age to 16? I'm trying to remember where it was. Yep. Too much NPR in the morning is what I've been listening to.
Not for whom.
But I know that was also making its way through the New York State Senate. I don't think it got anywhere, but there you go. We won't touch that one. We'll focus on voter registration. All right. With that being said, we will call the meeting to a close and we'll wait on the minutes for the next policy meeting. Fantastic. All right, good folks. Great to see everybody. Quote unquote, welcome back for some of you. Some of us, how's that?
Yeah, we feel better.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.